Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Rebecca Gollin. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a day that honors the life and achievements of one of our country's most influential civil rights leaders. With Dr. King's legacy in mind, we're celebrating with a story that takes us back in time. Founded in 1791, the University of Vermont is among the oldest institutions of higher education in the United States. A recent dedication on campus honors a long-ago graduate who was ahead of his time. It's a quiet winter day at the University of Vermont, but this area is usually bustling with activity. It's a central hub of campus as students go to the library or the student center. And not long ago, this green became part of UVM's history.
It was a little misty that day, but no one could feel the raindrops or anything. It was like the sun had just shined all over us.
Wanda Hedden-Grant is the Vice President for Human Resources, Diversity, and Multicultural Affairs at UVM. She's talking about the dedication ceremony of this space on campus as the Andrew Harris Commons.
The real most exciting part is that it's named after our first African-American graduate, Andrew Harris. And Andrew Harris graduated in 1838, and it is a way of acknowledging a man who was an abolitionist, an advocate for social justice and equity and the abolishment of slavery.
Across the Fence first reported the story of Andrew Harris several years ago, when he was being recognized by the university.
Only 1 year after his graduation from here, he delivered one of the most impassionate and inspired speeches history recalls to over 5,000 people in attendance at an abolitionist conference in New York City.
Andrew Harris was a member of UVM's class of 1838. He was one of 24 graduates that year. A few years older than most of his classmates, Harris was already a community and religious leader in Troy, New York by the time of his graduation. What set him apart was not his age or his accomplishments, however. It was the color of his skin.
He was a leader, he was an ordained minister, as well as he was an abolitionist. And he really believed in equality, and he really wanted full citizenships, particularly for African Americans at that time. And so his hard work, his dedication, and his passion really stood out.
The fact that he came here while slavery was still existing in the South and became an active abolitionist himself, really said something about his character.
Can you imagine Burlington, Vermont at that time? A small, bustling waterfront town surrounded by farms, deep woods, mill towns, and a population that didn't include many who looked like Andrew Harris.
Though it was seemingly progressive enough to admit Harris, UVM was not a particularly welcoming place. Harris's time here was punctuated by a variety of protests from fellow students to his very presence.
Andrew Harris, in particular, as we understand it, had to deal with some of the prescribed stereotypes of what it meant to be a black male, a black person in the United States. And so his time here was not perfect. It wasn't always a happy time.
Despite the difficulties, Harris flourished after graduating, moving to Philadelphia and becoming a pastor at a Presbyterian church in the city. He was becoming known as a leader in the anti-slavery movement when he died of a fever in 1841. He was just 27 years old. It was 2 decades before the Civil War would be fought, a time when just stepping into a college classroom as a black man was itself revolutionary. And although not appreciated by his peers, his actions left a permanent mark on the UVM community.
There was comments about what it meant to walk this campus at a time when Andrew Harris was here. There was comments about what it meant to be an alum who was coming back to visit this institution and how far it had come. There were comments about how we can be a model for other places and institutions where, you know, we all do not have the perfect history or the best history. Lots of things can be very bittersweet around diversity and inclusion.
Along with monuments marking the space, there's a historical marker explaining why the Andrew Harris Commons was created.
So many of us hope that this space will be used as a central hub, and it would be a gathering place for faculty, staff, and students. It would be a gathering place for our alum and our visitors and families and parents.
The project was the result of work by a number of partners, and Heading Grant says one of the key groups was UVM students.
But most importantly, this really speaks to our commitment of our students and how they engage on this campus and what they want for today and for tomorrow's students. This is all about how we move to a better, not just tomorrow, but a better today.
A touching memorial to a promising life cut short, and a fitting tribute for a groundbreaking UVM alumni.
It is a day that I will forever remember, and it is absolutely at the top of my list as one of the most important things in my time here at the University of Vermont that has occurred.
In addition to the new Commons, the university has also established the Andrew Harris Scholarship to recruit talented students and the Andrew Harris Fellowship to help recruit faculty of color. As a land-grant university, UVM is dedicated to helping the people of Vermont. So when one of Vermont's oldest family-owned businesses asked for help figuring out how to keep their ice cream cold, but not too cold, UVM Extension was more than happy to take on the sweet assignment. Here's Keith Silva with our story.
Working on Sweet Street in East Arlington, Vermont, has its perks.
What makes good ice cream? The formulation, the ability to freeze the product very quickly.
Wilcox's premium ice cream touts itself as Vermont's original ice cream. The Wilcox family has been making and delivering ice cream in Vermont since 1928. But this family business is older than that, and they've got the paperwork from the Equinox Hotel in Manchester to prove it.
It is a purchase order for the hotel. They wanted broilers but had enough eggs. We've been in the business since 1889, and my great-great-grandfather started peddling as a value-added product, eggs and chickens, lamb, sheep, even to the point in 1892 he was trading my aunt's tuition at Burton Academy for land because they had students there.
Today, Wilcox's premium ice cream makes 80,000 gallons of ice cream each year. It's all made by hand, and it happens very fast. Christina Wilcox is the company's chief financial officer and ice cream maker extraordinaire.
I'm picking up a pint, I'm filling a pint, I'm setting it down and having another pint under the point of filling in sometimes 2 seconds. I have to use my peripheral vision to know that the containers are next to me and the person next to me is able to take that from me to put the lid on. It requires an immense amount of teamwork. Everybody has to flow together and know what the next person needs. My team is very well trained, and I don't usually have to ask for anything. They know exactly what I need next.
Before being made in East Arlington, Wilcox's premium ice cream was made at the family's dairy farm in Manchester. In 2001, a fire destroyed the ice cream production and distribution facilities at the farm. To keep their family business going, the Wilcoxes had to keep making ice cream, which meant miles. Lots of miles.
After the fire happened, my dad and I started traveling to other locations wherever we could rent time in a facility. We brought all of our packaging, all of our raw materials. Our mix was made for us to our recipe. We would make what we used to maybe make in a week in a whole day. There were many weeks over many years that day exceeded 20 hours from start to finish.
It was important for our family to continue our own private label, so we traveled into Massachusetts, into New York, into northern Vermont to produce our Wilcox label. And my daughter and I and my son, we'd get up at 4 in the morning, leave and go make like 1,300 gallons of ice cream, load it on the truck and come home, and then offload it into our storage units that we had at that time. So for us to have this facility today, it's like going from a Model T to a Cadillac.
To maintain its freshness, ice cream has to be hardened off or frozen fast. Freezing ice cream quickly and efficiently requires what's called a blast freezer. There's only one slight problem. The floor of the freezer has to stay warm, at least warmish.
We can freeze like 12 to 1,600 gallons an hour from plus 27 to minus 10 in less than 12 hours. It's like in the wintertime when it goes out and it gets really cold and it gets minus 20, the frost goes down on the ground. So now we have to protect the floor in our freezers from the frost permeating it down into the earth because it will heave the floor.
To solve this frosty problem, Howard and Christina began working with University of Vermont Extension agricultural engineer Chris Callahan.
I got involved with Wilcox through a referral from John Ryan at the Vermont Agricultural Development Program, VADP. I spend a lot of my time working with farms on refrigerated storage and other food processors on various forms of refrigeration and basically environmental control, temperature and humidity control. So there was a pretty clear fit when first talking with Wilcox, the difference being this is much colder.
The system Callahan designed from scratch is simple and uses something there's plenty of in a warehouse: air.
We have a room that is at below freezing, and we're really dealing with conduction of heat into that room away from things that we're hoping to keep warm, like moisture and soil. And so what we're doing is taking air from this warehouse storage space and pumping it through the floor underneath the freezer to prevent it from freezing. This unit right here is one fan that is part of the floor frost prevention system. It's driven by or controlled by a thermostat, and this thermostat has a sensor that's deep inside the room, under the floor, and it's sensing the temperature of the floor. And when it starts to get below, say 45 degrees Fahrenheit, we kick this fan on using the thermostat, and what that fan does is bring this room temperature air, maybe it's 55 to 60 degree air, and it brings it through the floor to bring that temperature back up to prevent it from freezing. It's a pretty low-tech, low-energy, or energy-efficient means of preventing the floor from freezing.
Chris Callahan and UVM Extension was just invaluable in that process. This was what you call a design build. We didn't have it all figured out before the day we started. We were figuring it out as we went along.
This kind of challenge fits with the service UVM Extension is tasked to provide to Vermonters.
A project like this really exemplifies my vision of what Extension is all about, because this is really putting research-based knowledge to use. This is an ice cream company that was looking to understand how to prevent their floor from freezing. There were large-scale commercially available options that, for a number of reasons, didn't fit for this company. The key question is, what are our options and how do we understand which one is best?
The Wilcox family has been making ice cream for nearly 90 years, and there have been challenges along the way, for sure. But what matters most to them is that they keep making ice cream and keep their family business going for generations to come.
This summer when we were making ice cream, there was 5 of us making ice cream and 3 generations. So it's really very rewarding to be able to pass the torch to other generations and to show them some of the things that I have learned, and I have already found there's things they have learned that they incorporate. So this is very exciting and very important to us to do this.
It's perseverance. It's tattooed on our foreheads. So it's about being a part of something that is much larger than yourself. It's about, it's about continuing in what generations before you persevered through to make this even possible.
Determination and dedication are good qualities in a family or a business. And if you're a Wilcox, You could even say they're sweet. In East Arlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith. And that's our program for today. I'm Rebecca Gollin. Please join us again tomorrow on Across the Fence.